Hey, and welcome to More Than Metal. We were just talking about how Mountain Dew predicts all the major catastrophes in humanity over the last 20 years.
Yeah,
Are
exactly. What?
you're not familiar with that? Oh, Bill,
No,
no,
what?
there's a conspiracy theory on the internet that says that whenever Mountain Dew releases a new flavor, it coincides with within a week or two some major disaster in human history.
I have never heard of this before.
Oh, it's quite prevalent. I'd be happy to send you to various websites that can tell you about this that may or may not have a blue gorilla asking for your social security number.
Oh my fucking god. Bonzi
But,
buddy.
but yeah, no, there literally is really a conspiracy theory that Mountain Dew flavors predict deadly disasters for the United States here
Oh,
at
that's
several tubs.
horrible.
Yes, and with their next release here of Baja Midnight, it's curious what Baja Midnight will join up to in terms
It's
of
it's
art.
curious to try and think of what that's gonna fucking taste like. What is Baja Midnight?
I don't know, but it'll probably go in my body at some point. So
Okay,
that may be a
enough.
conspiracy theory. But yes, please, those out there know that Mountain Dew has predicted major disasters for humanity in the United States over the last 20 years or so.
What a way to
Including,
start the episode. Jesus.
oh, this is wait, which podcast is this I'm on today? Is this the okay? See, I have the one of the Mountain Dew fandom, the conspiracy theory one. Oh, and then More Than Metal. You're right. Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I was on the wrong.
we're
the
not
wrong
talking
notes
about
here.
Mountain Dew.
Wrong notes here.
Yeah.
But speaking of that, speaking of Mountain Dew and things that are delicious, we have a guest today. Justin Gautreau is here with us.
Hey there. Thanks for having me. Didn't know this about Mountain Dew, but I'm laughing that it's going to be in your body soon. So that was a good one.
Well, I think I think that if this is something that a good portion of Americans are putting in their body, they should be aware of what exactly it is. Predicting for our safety and sanctity of such.
The ramifications.
The ramifications.
Yeah. More Than Metal, the Mountain Dew edition.
We're gonna get there. We're gonna get there. That's part of the goal. We may even try to open up our own version of it. One of the numerous knockoffs of it, such as But we'll get into that here. And maybe there will be more than just metal in the Mountain Dew.
Jesus Christ.
Oh man, you guys are too much fun.
Now with 100% more lead.
I'd prefer some. That is a heavy metal, but I'd prefer something a little more. We'll say I'm more of a prog rock guy and psychedelic rock, so I wanted to have some sort of other effect than just dumbing down the person over time.
Oh yeah, so like cesium.
Cesium.
Yeah,
that's an excellent underrated. Yeah, super underrated.
Underrated element.
Underrated element. Yeah, I don't hear enough people representing cesium.
My cesium homies at.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like representation's key here in the elements, sir. But Justin, we lost a little. Justin, man, hey, tell us who you are, what you do, and where we can find you. Online, that is, please.
Sure. I am a writing instructor at UC Merced. I work with you, John. I've worked with you for the past 9 years. Next year will be 10 years.
Just flies, man.
Yeah. I also research and write about film history, and more recently I've been dabbling in music journalism. So that's what was the second question?
Oh, where we can find you.
Sure.
Or what do you do? You did explain what you do, which is pretty good.
Oh,
where
cool.
can we find you online? Your work anywhere?
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram at Justin Gautro, all one word, Justin Gautreau. And where you can find my stuff, my music stuff is all exclusively on LA Review of Books.
Okay.
And then my actual academic stuff is kind of all over the place. Yeah, and I could talk more about that if you want.
We'll talk more about that one after we come back from the break here. But excellent intro, Justin. We're looking forward to talking with you and hearing about kind of your approaches to investigating these history of media. Is that a fair way to put it?
It sounds kind of way cooler than it is, but sure, we'll go with that.
It's a podcast. Everything on it sounds cooler than it actually is.
We're doing a podcast. None of us are cool.
I beg to differ. I've never felt cooler than sitting here with you two.
Oh, well, it's an honor, truly.
All you really need to do to up the mood is a little bit of Mountain Dew Baja Midnight. All right.
Predict the next great disaster in human history.
I'm just trying to get sponsorships any way I can. You know what I'm saying? Like, who if they want to come sponsor us?
That ship has sailed.
That ship
I
has
know,
sailed.
no
Yeah.
kidding. Mountain Dew, you're associated with every human disaster. Do you want to be our sponsor?
You know what? I like to think of it as a trendsetter.
Oh my god.
All right, well, we'll be right back after opening here. Bill, what are you listening to?
I have been revisiting Unto Others.
Oh,
Yeah, very goth rock. Love it.
My boys.
Listening to they're really good. I've been listening to I think it was last September. Never Neverland.
yes,
incredible album.
One of my favorite albums of the year.
Good. It's so good.
My favorite albums of the year. Yes, very, very good. They have you checked out? Are you familiar with Hoaxed?
Hoaxed? Yes,
Yeah.
I am. I literally revisiting Never Neverland came after I was just getting my most recent tattoo done, and my artist, she was just playing all of the discography, and then started shuffling into like Hoaxed and a lot of other kind of bands in that kind of niche genre.
You know the relationship between the two bands. You know that
no, I don't actually.
The drummer of Hoaxed is Gabriel from Unto Others' wife.
Oh my god, that's awesome.
Yeah,
That's super cool.
They're really, really good. There's a lot of talent in that family.
Oh yeah,
and they have one of the best shredders.
Oh my God.
Sebastian Spider Silva is one of the best shredders out there. He's in a lot of other bands. I can talk about that. That's all. I got a whole episode. We were talking about that scene.
Oh
and,
yeah, we
how
just
much I
talked
love
about
them
Unto Others for an hour and a half.
and the like. Yes, very, very much. But we also have a guest here, Justin.
What have you been listening to?
I want to know what do you listen to? What are you listening to as of late?
All right. Well, let me preface my answer by saying I have 3 young daughters, and all they want to listen to on the turntable are Disney records, like the Frozen soundtrack. But let me try to give you a cooler answer because I know that's
What's
not
cooler
very
than
good.
Frozen? I mean, it's in the name.
Yeah.
That's true. That's true.
And what's cool? And what's and I think Bill and I will speak. I don't know what your situation's like. I think it's really what's cooler than a dad supporting their child's interests.
Damn right.
Thank you.
So take some pride. Don't feel embarrassed by what you said. I want you to take some pride in what you just said, sir.
And I will die on the hill that the Frozen soundtrack is a banger and a half.
Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah. No,
it's more than metal, sir. Quit trying to stereotype us and pigeonhole us. Come on my podcast and tell me what's good and what's not.
It's in the name.
But while I'm driving and after I drop them off at school, I'm able to listen to some stuff.
It's just Cannibal Corpse all the way down.
I've recently been revisiting the Titus Andronicus album, The Monitor.
Oh, okay.
That's I think it's just turned 15 years old, if I'm not mistaken. I have been kind of constantly on a kick for the band The National. I love them. I saw them a couple years ago in San Francisco at the Civic Auditorium, and it was probably one of the best shows I've ever been to. Another album that I've been dabbling with that I've been trying to get into. So John Mulaney has a weekly show on Netflix. I don't know if either one of you watch it, but he has some very good musical guests. And I was introduced to a guy named Bartees Strange, or a band named Bartees Strange.
That is
his
an
album,
incredible name.
Yeah, he has an album called Horror, and he performed it. He performed a song called Sober on John Mulaney that I thought was just, like I was totally blown away. So that's kind of what I've been listening to when I get a chance. Those three
No, that's a
bands.
great.
Good spread.
That's a good spread, man. No, I think that's great, and I think that's a big thing too. That's been a kind of a thesis of this podcast so far as we've done it is like just open up and be open to new stuff and don't get confined to it. And speaking of which, not being confined, the album I have not been able to get over it since I first heard it, and I got it. Of course, I got it on vinyl, but that came out just this month was the newest album from Lonesome Wyatt and the Holy Spooks.
That's such a good name.
It is such a good name. The album is Sad Witch Cult.
That's a great. That's another great name. Oh my god.
If you're not familiar with them, with Lonesome Wyatt out of Wisconsin, he is half or a major part of Those Poor Bastards.
Oh.
Yeah, which is, if you haven't heard Those Poor Bastards, for those that don't know, it's like a heavy, really nasty, dirty country song. Like really depressing. A lot of songs about like not necessarily killing yourself, but like all but killing yourself. like being lonesome, and like I think one of my favorite lyrics is something about like I don't want to die. I want to live a long time so I can watch myself rot. Like it's like really depressing stuff. But Lonesome Wyatt, the Holy Spooks, I would probably describe it as like, imagine if there was a Tim Burton movie that was scored by Danny Elfman, but they needed a country soundtrack. And it's really interesting stuff. Sad Witch Cult is a kind of a divergence though, because he has a female vocalist on this, which is not named. She's just known as Sad Witch on the album. That's what she's credited as.
Oh, cute. And
the album has a kind of a theme about this rise of this Sad Witch, and it's pretty good. I actually really enjoy this one. He's done some. He has done some stuff with some female vocalists under Lonesome Wyatt. He did an album with Rachel Brooke, who's a country artist. It's really good. That kind of old school, like solid country. If you guys hear me talk about country music that I like. It's not contemporary, what we'd call like the contemporary style country. It's actually like, the old school, like Patsy Cline, Johnny Cash style.
Yeah.
But yeah, the new Lonesome Wyatt Sad Witch Cult, highly recommended. Cannot recommend enough. I'll put a link here. It also is one of my favorite album covers of so far of the year as well.
It's really good. I'm just looking at it right now. I gotta listen to this.
It's really good. Yeah, my wife it's one of those albums where I put it on and my wife's like, oh, this is really good. I'm like, yeah, no, it's genuinely good, broad music, and I highly recommend everything they're doing here, and the like. But
nice.
That's not why we're here today. We're here for Justin.
No sandwiches here.
No sandwiches here. I'm sorry, it's almost lunch. It's like lunchtime, so I'm looking at sandwiches. But Justin, so you wrote a book a while back. And tell us about that.
So yeah, my first book, which came out almost 5 years ago, is all about these authors who came to Hollywood to write screenplays during the reign of the studio system from the 1920s through the 1950s or so. At a time when it was very difficult to talk shit about Hollywood and about the studios and how they worked and things like that. The promotional apparatus at the time made it so there was not really a way to speak openly about the inner workings or the ugly side of Hollywood that has become kind of common today. And so I'm looking at these authors who came and were quickly disillusioned by how they were treated and how they were viewed, how they felt in their experiences working for the movies. And so what they did, they were able to talk shit through the guise of fiction. So if you go back and if you read some of these novels that have kind of been forgotten today, they are really exposing or giving this different version of the industry, of the film industry than what you would otherwise get at the time. And so that's the 2-minute elevator pitch.
That's a good pitch.
A good pitch.
Yeah. That's a damn good pitch. Like, I mean, I've heard some pitches in my time. And that was a
good one.
That was solid. Yeah, I didn't know the specifics of what your book was about. I knew it was largely about that media scape. But that's really interesting. Is this kind of idea of how to break in, or how people are trying to break in, and the disillusionment. I think that's really cool. And I've certainly read a lot of I've read quite a few books of like I like reading books about like musicians and stuff like that too, and I've heard that story from quite a few
Yeah.
musicians.
Yeah.
So it's very much a Hollywood Los Angeles story in that regard.
Very much so.
Um, okay, so one of the and then you also got just to jump into today, you got news like literally this is our scoop news today of another up and coming book you are going. I'm not sure how far you are. I have no idea anything about it besides that it's happening.
Yeah.
But maybe you don't either. But can you tell us about the next project here?
Sure. So yeah, just a few hours ago, this is hot off the press.
Whoa.
I got an email from Oxford University Press, and they are offering me a book contract for a project they invited me to write, which is related to my first book, but it's a biography of the forgotten novelist screenwriter named W.R. Burnett, who's written some of very, very, very famous works that have been adapted into film, and he worked on a ton of amazing movies. He helped write the screenplay for The Great Escape. Some of his novels that were adapted kind of jump started the careers of a ton of Hollywood stars like Humphrey Bogart and Marilyn Monroe. So I'm writing that guy's biography, and that was just greenlit today.
Wow. Wow.
Whoa. Congratulations.
Yeah,
That's
congrats,
awesome.
man. I
Thank
know
you.
that's good news. Obviously that's good news for you, but it's also good. I always like hearing about that kind of stuff because like working at the UC, that anything that brings eyes on the UC helps out a lot, and it's cool to see people doing cool stuff. And that's one thing I like
Yeah.
about working there is seeing other people do cool stuff.
Yeah.
So I can live vicariously through you.
Thank you.
I like
But
watching other people do cool things.
it is fun watching
Yeah.
other people do cool things. I believe that's how TikTok got funded.
Yeah, actually.
That's what Twitch is.
That's just Twitch. That's
That's
just
just
the
Twitch.
reaction content.
This is
That's-
reaction content, right?
My God.
But yeah, and so one of my questions that Bill and I were kind of pondering before you came on here was what's your approach to like talking about media? I mean, you've written, you and I teach writing, and so we teach writing all those kind of things. And it's one thing, well, let's teach you how to write, but what about writing about media and like the people in media and the kind of environment of that media is generated in? What kind of stuff do you do to approach that topic?
So that's a really good question.
Thank
And
you.
it's
Of course it
actually
is. It came
it's
from a
actually
UC.
one I've
It came from a
never
UC Merced professor.
I expect nothing less.
I
You can laugh on the podcast. You don't have to hold it back there, Justin. For those at home, they can't see Justin. He's laughing and he won't like emote.
I mute myself so people don't realize how funny I think John is. So okay, I'm going to try to answer this. When I was in grad school, when I was studying this stuff, my dissertation was what became my first book. And a lot of the stuff we studied in grad school was all about like the Frankfurt School thinkers,
Mm.
and how they thought of media. And so in a lot of ways, that's how I was kind of approaching film, as this kind of mindless entertainment that, as Adorno would say, is kind of standardized and kind of making us all sheep and things like that.
Yeah,
Um,
that's what
but the
I've heard
more I
too. Is that anybody that works on movies is just mindless? I've heard that.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah,
I can attest. I can totally attest.
the more I was researching, it's funny, right? Because it was like the big change between my dissertation and my book is realizing that film actually like gained a much more critical capacity in the 1940s, into the
Mm,
50s with film noir and things like that. And so that was actually kind of like part of my big realization is that no, it's not mindless inherently. It's about the politics surrounding it. Uh,
mm,
and when you have kind of filmmakers who have something critical to say, even with the rules and regulation, the so-called production code, during classical Hollywood cinema era, filmmakers could kind of easily get around these codes in order to put their kind of ideas in a critical way that was not, necessarily as regulated as we might think.
mm.
So, um, and then I like that question, like with music in particular, because I think one thing that I'm becoming more interested in ways that I did not think about until just this moment is how music seems like it has always been the place to be kind of subversive in this
Hmm.
Oh
big
yeah.
way. Um, so I'll stop there as I still process your question.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm glad you. Yeah, that was a solid, good answer up front. And
That was good. Yeah. Jesus.
I think that's really interesting to me because I think confinement on like we talk about like, what's art without like limitation. I want art without limitations, and that to me it was we're going to start dropping names here. That comes off a little like the being of pure creation without restraint. So a little bit of Nietzsche, a little bit of the Ubermensch type situation. But like
Mm.
I think confinement helps a lot in artistry, and
Yeah.
I will cite Chuck Jones on this. The great director of the Roadrunner cartoons and numerous Looney
Yeah.
Tunes.
Chuck Jones.
No, and it's serious because he said he had like a list of rules for the Roadrunner cartoons, and that those confinements made them good.
Hmm.
And I
Yeah.
think that
Playing
like
within the rules.
you gotta play within the rules. That you gotta have that structure, and that's what I think. And this is interesting to me because I Justin knows I teach a lot about like role playing games and everything at the UC, and so and games are a lot about confinement and then finding freedom in that confinement.
Yeah.
And I think that like even with music, even if you're doing it at home, whatever instrument you're using does confine you some regard. So to some regard, you can't make anything you want to at any time with any instrument. You have to go and find either a new instrument, learn new skills, build it up. There's always that kind of restraint, and that restraint can be political.
Mhm.
And I think it's interesting to see how it can become subversive and how it can force creativity through it. But yeah, we often think of creativity as just being whatever, whenever, and it's like no, every medium is a confinement of your creativity.
Hmm.
I think that is really interesting, that kind of thesis
That
of it,
is, yeah.
and how these guys that are like the Frankfurt School, it was Frankfurt School, right? Was you
Hmm.
referenced
Yeah.
how they thought about this, but like I mean, they had a very limited time of experience with this art form, you know. Uh, they've clearly never seen Star Wars. Uh,
Right.
so, like, so like it's kind of how things can open up and such. And I think that's really neat. And that also goes back to me like a lot of the films I really enjoy are films where they were restrained in their making. They weren't multi-million dollar like I have unlimited
Yeah.
budget, do whatever you want.
Yeah.
They were figuring things out where as they could. We referenced on this show a lot Terminator,
Oh yeah.
and Terminator was made under extreme confinement.
Hmm.
They made that movie fundamentally illegally, like without permits,
Yep.
but it gave you a real opening of what Los Angeles looks like, and James Cameron's talent, pure talent that he could pull
Oh
off.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so like I don't think anybody could have made that movie, but it shows that like what someone can really do. So I think yeah, I'm really intrigued by this thesis of yours. I think that's a really good approach to it.
Yeah.
So what about your so you talked a little bit about music journalism. What's that been like for you?
Um, so over when I started working at UC Merced with you, John, I also
I'm
started.
responsible. So you're making me responsible for this. Whatever you're about to say. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, yeah. It's all I credit you entirely. I started one of my PhD advisors. His name is Tom Lutz. He founded the LA Review of Books,
Mm,
not to be confused with the LA Times Review of Books. And when I got to Merced, I kind of just asked him like, "Hey, can I be involved with this somehow?" And I've been volunteering ever since. During COVID, the editor at the time, his name was Boris Dreluk, who's a super cool guy. And I'd been volunteering up to that point for about, 4 or 5 years. And it kind of occurred to me like, I have this connection, I have this passion for kind of talking to so many of these singer-songwriters who I just love, who I've looked up to for so long. And so I just kind of asked him one day, hey, could I try to interview some of these singer-songwriters for LA Review of Books? And because I had been doing so much volunteer work, he kind of just said, sure. And so I kind of started what became almost like a series of talking to singer-songwriters about their craft during
Huh.
lockdown and during COVID
Oh
because
wow.
I kept seeing a trend in, kind of these artists releasing music that were very, speaking of confines, that were very
Mhm.
much
Exactly.
affected by lockdown. So, from the writing through the recording of it, I was just kind of obsessed. And because of my LA Review of Books email address, publicists would pay attention and actually get back to me. So I I was just kind of making it up as I went, but it was so cool. Such a cool thing to do and get involved with.
Oh wow, that is a
That's
really unique
oh my god,
approach
yeah.
too, and yeah, and I'm glad you brought up the idea of confinement because that's the first thing I thought was like, yeah, COVID really confined, literally physically confined us, but also confined us creatively. You probably had people who were used to writing on the road, and then that was no longer an option and such.
Yeah.
So, absolutely fascinating, fascinating.
I
Um,
got a question for you, Justin, actually.
here we go.
Mhm.
Yeah, what do you think your favorite piece of lockdown music was? Like what was your favorite piece of, really, it could be music, could be anything that came out of that lockdown time? Because we got some good
Mm,
music.
Yeah, for sure. And part of what, I mean, before I answer that, part of what I was interested in was like really asking the question, like, was this really how much did lockdown actually influence this, or is this just something I'm trying to push on to these singer-songwriters that I'm interviewing? But the whole reason it started, to answer your question, I think my favorite piece came from um, lead singer of the band called Margot and the Nuclear So-and-Sos. His name is Richard Edwards. He started releasing solo music, and during the lockdown, he straight up like started revisiting some of his older songs and
mm,
re-recording them, almost like
Whoa.
almost like covering his younger self. And he would release these albums straight up called Songbooks in Quarantine.
Oh
Um,
man.
and I think more than any other, that's the very first thing that comes to mind to answer your question is I think that was my favorite because it was the most directly impacted, but also he just captured something from these microphones that he used just in his house. It's just amazing. So yeah.
that's really
Wow.
that's really
That's
interesting.
fascinating.
Yeah,
I yeah.
I was thinking back to that because I was trying to think of like, yeah, quarantine music. It's been a few years now, but yeah, the Sword did a series of recordings through like online means called The Conquest of Quarantine. Uh,
Yes.
and
Oh
so
my
and they
god.
recorded some old songs, but they also did a bunch of covers of like "Don't Do Me Like That" and like "Working Man" and all these various like kind of like very classic tunes. And it was a really interesting time to see what people were like was going through their heads.
Yeah.
And
How
I'm
about
glad you're capturing that.
thanks.
That's
Well,
fascinating.
and Bill, back at you. What your question back at you? What was your favorite piece?
Oh, here we
Oh
go.
my god. You're flipping it back on me? Oh man. That's a really good question. I think hmm.
Man, that's all. Yeah, it's a
Yeah,
stumper.
I gotta think about that one.
I can tell you what like in my opinion of what quarantine did and what I think it in like my own personal music taste appear what it like really contributes to the rise of Dungeon Synth.
Oh yeah.
That everybody was putting Dungeon Synth records out because it was super simple and you didn't need high tech gear to do it. You could it goes back to the idea of what was called like what was it called like a bedroom pop where you just get a little
Yeah.
Casio and you just knock it out. And because
Oh
I was
yeah.
listening a little bit like that kind of lo-fi stuff, and I think that's really interesting that like we can do more with less, which once again
Yes.
confinement, and I think that's a big element of I think that's what I would define that period of music as is more with less. You have
Yeah.
because
Totally.
you have all the time in the world to think and to work on it, but you're restrained in your gear, you're restrained in your environment, and then having to do that. And I think that's I love that kind of stuff. I find that fascinating. So yeah, there's some good stuff that came out of it. That's
Yeah, there
really
is
interesting
some good
that
stuff.
approach.
Oh my
Billy, you got
god.
an answer yet?
Not particularly, but I'm looking through my like saved songs and I'm kind of seeing where I was at. I oh man.
Interesting. I don't remember what I was
Gosh.
listening to. I was still I remember a lot of people having releases then too. So but
Yeah.
that was at the beginning of lockdown, yeah. But yeah, no, that's I like it. Justin, you came on here and you stumped us. Good for you, man.
Yeah, good stuff. I mean, yeah, that works. We love to see it. Oh my God.
Yeah.
So what one of the questions we were really intrigued by is like what's it
Huh.
take to like start researching this stuff, man? Like where do you kind of begin with that? I mean, you reached out to these artists kind of reach out to you, but like what else do you do beyond just like maybe they reach out to you or you talk to them? What else do you kind of like navigate the situation with? Because I was noticing you got this new book deal and you put a call out saying, hey, if anyone finds a book on this guy, buy it for me. I believe it was literally what you said.
I want to hear more about those.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I want to hear more about how like you're being paid to write this book, and also you're asking people to buy you presents at the same time for doing so.
Well, if I'm getting paid is still
Oh,
I
fair
haven't
enough. Fair enough.
yeah, I don't know about that yet, but no, with this guy W.R. Burnett, who I'm the biography I'm working on now officially as of today, he wrote 36 novels in his lifetime, and
Whoa.
most of them are just completely out of print in the United States. In
Mm,
fact, out of print was what I wanted to call the biography, but they didn't like it because they thought that wouldn't sell any books. But so because of that, like I have to go to eBay to find these novels, and I of course I have to read all his novels if I'm going to be writing his
mm.
biography, right? So that's why I said on my post, hey, if you're in a used bookshop and if you see a cheap W.R. Burnett novel, please buy it for me and I'll pay you back.
Tell me,
Um,
do you go buy on abe.com?
I don't know.
The
No, I don't.
American Book Exchange.
Okay.
Very good for used books.
Okay.
Like highly
Cool.
recommended. That's how I got a lot of my my rare HP Lovecraft for my graduate school work.
Amazing. Yeah. But the other quick thing I'll say about that project, and by the way, like my film stuff is much different, I would say, than like my music journalism stuff. And I think maybe this current biography is the thing that kind of brings them together a little
Mhm.
bit. So the other thing I was going to say about my W.R. Burnett book is that you know, my music journalism and my film stuff have always felt very separate to me, but I think increasingly they're kind of becoming very similar with this biography because it is about Hollywood history, but it's also a biography. And
Mm.
so in addition to those 36 novels that I mentioned, the other huge resource, I'm in touch with his last surviving son,
Whoa.
who's in his 70s,
Oh wow.
Damn.
and so hopefully I'll be able to fly up to go see him because he has a whole, from what he tells me, he has a whole room full of his dad's journals and things like that. And
Whoa.
so it's almost like, when I did my first book, to answer your question, John, most of it was just
Mhm.
archival stuff. You go down to Hollywood, the Margaret Herrick Library in Beverly Hills, USC, UCLA, all kinds of these big named film libraries with this stuff. But with this project, it's interesting because it's still kind of archival research, but it's much more intimate to where I'm
Mhm.
going to go fly to see this guy's son and look in his guest bedroom where he has a room full of his dad's papers. So
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and then
Interesting.
you're gonna have to play the taxonomy and classification game with him too, with all
Oh
that stuff.
yeah.
That's gonna be a big game. Yeah, I know what you're talking
Oh,
about.
yes. Yes, this is true. I have asked him,
You know,
like,
you
just,
should if you do you know anyone that has training in those kind of things from say a reputable school that's ALA compliant?
John Boltina
This
comes
is
to mind.
correct. This is correct.
I was
Yes,
that was a Bill, John was just
Yeah.
testing me,
I
and
was.
that was about to be the end of this podcast had I said I don't know.
I don't
Yeah.
know.
Well, I could tell. I could put two and two together.
Yeah. No, I just no, I know it's actually interesting work to kind of I actually like sorting through stuff and sifting through stuff and
Oh yeah. It's
that's
fun.
like my final record collection is very much where I put those feelings out into my
Oh
own.
yeah. Put it into something that you really, yeah.
Yeah, you got it's
Fascinating.
really interesting and going through someone else's stuff is really interesting and finding some of the weird stuff in there.
Oof.
I did some of that with UC Merced way back before went to school for it and like you go
Oh
through
yeah.
people's archives and it was literally like a series of I did some stuff with the William McDaniels collection that they got when they
Whoa.
first got it and it was like in shoe boxes.
Oh my
And
gosh.
it was weird because some of it was like literally coupons she clipped out of like a grocery ad with
That's
nothing written on it.
wild.
And you're like, what is the value of this to the
Very,
collection?
yeah.
Yeah, totally.
Oh
And
my god.
so you have to kind of, where do you put it in the categorization of stuff like that? And
I bet that's like
uh,
super fascinating.
it
Just
is fascinating, yeah. And
yeah.
and one of the core lessons we had a textbook I remember called Everything's Miscellaneous, and basically the simple lesson is that if your classification system has a miscellaneous category, your classification system sucks.
Interesting.
Because miscellaneous is it's so non-specific.
That's the whole point. Yeah, is that you should be
Yeah.
able to you need to expand your classification capacity.
Yeah, you should be able to cover more
So
stuff.
it's interesting, yeah. And I both envy and don't envy you for having to go do that.
Yeah.
I would recommend gloves and masks.
Oh yeah, very
Yeah.
much so.
No, seriously,
Yeah.
I'm dead serious. Like you find, I've seen people pull like old papers out, and it can be very it's organic material, my friend. Like,
Oh, gross.
Yeah.
so very
Yeah.
fun though. That's super. I mean, but here's the
That
thing
sounds
about
really
that.
fun though.
That's going to be an adventure. Yeah,
Oh yeah.
Yes.
that's going to be an adventure on you literally physically moving, going to the place, but then also like digging through it. Much like your hero Indiana Jones.
Hmm.
So,
Just-
My hero?
oh, is he your hero?
Whose hero are we talking about here?
It was the royal you.
Got it. Got it.
I don't know. I feel like you might. I don't know. Maybe you disapprove of a man who goes out and seeks out knowledge and punches Nazis. I don't know. Sure.
Sounds like my kind of guy. Come on.
Yeah, I was like, oh, let's take it back here, Justin. Thank you, but
No, I just make it. Yeah, okay, yeah, sure. Just like my hero, Indy. Just like Indy.
Exactly. There you go. How was
There.
that so hard?
was that so
Justin?
hard?
Someone
This is hard.
finally said it. Someone finally gave
Yeah.
me the platform to. Yeah, thank you.
No,
for that.
that's really what podcasts are about is
Oh, yeah.
platforming ourselves to then platform others
Exactly.
that we wish to have media exposure and the
Yeah.
like.
I actually got another question for you, Justin. So I'm sure you're a big fan of like looking through all this stuff and kind of archiving everything, but what is your favorite part of the process of like doing all this research and like writing something? Like, what is the part that you look forward to the most?
I think that's a solid question. Thank you
I
very
know the
much.
answer. It's being invited on a podcast.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, I can't get over the bed of the podcast. I'm sorry.
Put your ego away, John. No, I'm kidding.
Never.
I think, I think the most rewarding thing is just kind of finding something that I know nobody has really thought of before I started kind of making these connections. And so and then of course the downside is I think it's incredible and I think like I've stumbled onto something just so cool and then everyone else is not as dorky as I am so they don't care as much. But I think that is just amazing is looking through this stuff. So, like especially when you're working with Hollywood history, you think like, oh man, like this is pretty, people have no idea about this small connection I'm making and so it feels more important than it is at the time, but that's always the thing that energizes me is having a hunch about something and then looking through the archives and realizing like, yep, I was right.
Do you like being right?
Yes, exactly.
Oh yeah. That's what the show's all about, is being
Yes.
right. And
Yes.
objective facts.
Yes. Yes. The correct opinions on things like sleep token.
Not this again.
But okay. No, that's fun, man. I really like that. Let me ask you this question then, Justin. So now I know that you're doing there's another project you're doing you can't talk about, which is fine. But I did want to ask you, what is like a dream project for you? What's something where you want to go to, like not necessarily having unlimited money or that kind of thing, but I'm saying like what's something you would want to be like kind of look into more about or get up to bring to a higher degree or to a higher sense of consciousness or something you'd want to like really sink your teeth into.
Well, I will say that, yeah, so I'm thinking like in terms of music, I feel like I am currently working on my dream project. I can't talk a lot about it, but I will just say my work for LA Review of Books was the stepping stone into this current project that I'm working on. um, um, this memoir that I'm helping with is kind of like a dream come true, and so um, there's that. For film stuff, I feel like a dream project, and this is gonna sound back to me sounding not more excited about this stuff than most people, but I've always been fascinated by the history of studios in that area. So things like the backlots and stuff like that. And one of the things I talk a little bit about in my first book is when like Universal Studios, when they first opened in the early 20s, they invited all these people from all over the country to come visit, and then slowly but surely, and then of course you have that tradition with Universal Studios now, but slowly but surely they started to kind of like make the public go away. They didn't want them anymore because they were too disruptive to movie making, in this hilarious kind of way. And then you get things like Hollywood Boulevard that was supposed to be the substitute for that studio tour,
Mm.
feeling involved with movie making. So I almost feel like a dream project for my film stuff is just like actually going and studying the history of these spaces in that area, because I am just like obsessed with them, endlessly
So,
obsessed with backlots.
so this kind of okay. So this kind of idea of like, because that's really interesting to me, because this kind of idea of like this kind of dawn of like movie tourism, if you will,
Yeah,
like especially with the film especially when most of these movies are made like in the studios on the lots versus like
exactly.
now they go do it on location. I mean, I know people that do like my wife's from Georgia, so like we'll watch Stranger Things and she'll be like, oh yeah, like I had friends that went to that high school.
Hmm.
Like it's a constant thing because Georgia, everything's freaking filmed in Georgia. And so but that was a big thing back then, to bringing people in and how they managed that, and then how they had to kind of pivot that, like, hey, we actually have to do a job here and make millions of dollars, so y'all need to leave.
Correct. Correct.
Go to this street.
Correct.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting. And seeing kind of like, I can see that being really interesting, both looking at the rise of that, but also inevitably I don't say the fall of it, but the kind of decline of it.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, because I remember when I first lived in Los Angeles and going to places, I heard of this place. I heard that
Yeah.
name, drop that name, and you go there and you're like, this place is a fucking shithole.
Yeah.
And like,
Welcome to LA.
welcome to LA, right? Like, the kind of former glamour of it all in some regard, and how the shine doesn't stick on it. But then, but that's really interesting to see. How I didn't realize they were really trying to do that from the get go, and then slowly corral people and navigate that situation. That sounds really interesting. Actually, I think that's a great, that's a great project. Yeah, I'd love to hear more about that. If you do it, hopefully you do it.
Yeah, if I do
Oh
it
yeah.
one of these days. But real quick, so that the whole like no visitor policy was even bigger during the early days of the talkies, when they really couldn't have any like unwanted sound or commotion
Mm.
outside. And so the chapter in my book, I think I call it like soundproofing scandal, but really I
That's a
just
great
wanted to
name.
call it shut the fuck up.
Oh my God. You heard it here first, folks. I love that.
Sounds about right, man. That's not sometimes that's how it works. That's how it works, man. Well, let me ask this, Justin. What's something you want people to walk away from your work with? Like, what's kind of, do you have kind of a universal thing
Ooh,
you want people to walk away with after they
that's a really
experience
good
your
one.
work, whether a book, an article, a memoir you're helping with? What's something you would want them to go home and really stick with them?
Mm.
I think the common thing in what I do, and I honestly did not even realize it until this conversation.
That's the whole
Um,
point, man.
Oh yeah.
but I'm always interested in there's the front, there's what people see or they hear, see on film or television, or what they hear on an album, or what they watch in concert or whatever it is. But I think I'm always interested in what's going on, behind the scenes, to put it in a simple, cheesy way. Um, and I think what I would want people to walk away with in my work is just kind of a broader understanding of what I like to think is that what I'm doing is helping develop a deeper understanding and a fuller appreciation for the stuff that we already know and love in some ways. And so getting to know the people, getting to know their stories, I think is a way of really getting a fuller picture of things. And so hopefully that's what I'm doing, and hopefully that's what I continue to do.
Getting people to see the big picture. Huh?
Yeah.
I
Get
like
it?
it.
Yeah.
I like that. Yeah.
I'm rubbing off on Bill. Get him the bad. He's got the bad puns now.
Oh yeah,
He's
very
got a
much
case.
so.
Yeah, it's contagious.
Mm-hmm.
So
I'm sorry, Justin.
well,
For what it's worth, Jesus.
That's okay.
Well, that's. I'm glad to hear
Yeah,
you're
no.
walking away from this. There was something to walk away with. That's pretty cool, man.
Oh yeah.
Listen, I think we have some more questions for Justin here, Bill. You got some more?
God, the one thing that I was going to ask was like
Oh,
how you
please.
start your research.
Yeah.
John got to that one. I mean, you were very comprehensive, my friend. You
Yeah.
Good.
you've practiced these questions before. I'm sure.
And for those at home who can't see, Justin's smiling
Oh yeah,
deviously.
very deviously. You got a
Very
devious
devious.
grin there.
Yes, I'm very intimidated. He may push us off the back lot here sooner or later.
He
Love
becomes
it.
the host.
All right.
it.
Well, I felt pretty good about this, Justin. Did you have was it a good experience for you?
Very good experience, and hopefully my film stuff isn't too. I mean, I know we're talking about more than metal, but I
Sure.
hope hopefully my film stuff is not too off point from the topic of the podcast.
No,
The topic
we
of the podcast is incredibly broad.
it is really broad, yeah, and we gotta reference several times Terminator, so we're fine. We're
Yeah.
good.
We got
it's
our
good.
Terminator.
Yeah,
references
our
in.
fans will know what they're getting.
Mhm.
And you mentioned some music you're bringing, which actually was pretty cool because I pulled up all these bands and actually have them all listed here. I'm gonna try to listen to all of these at some
Oh,
point, and then therefore judge you harshly when I see you in person next.
I'm sure. I'm sure. Bill, I should tell you this is a space where I could say this. One of the things John and I bonded over early on was vinyl.
Yeah.
We bonded over vinyl,
Yes.
and I will just bug John, asking him like very basic questions. And because of John, my setup is a little better than what it was before I moved to Merced. But John has been so nice in answering all my vinyl turntable questions. And I just needed to say that here on this podcast because, thank you, John, for all
Oh
your
yeah,
for humoring all my questions
I'll
about
take-
like, hey, what do I set the anti-skate to? Things like that.
Oh my fucking god.
No, yeah, I'm always. It's actually kind of fun when I get those questions because like I like to go look up about gear that I don't own, and then I get to think, oh, Justin bought this. That's cool. I guess he's willing to accept lower sound quality.
Oh my god.
That's me. Lower sound quality, Justin. That's me.
It makes you, yeah. No, it's but no, actually, I really like talking about all the old gear like that. It's actually fun,
Yeah.
and you got a pretty nice set. You have a pretty nice setup actually for your space, honestly. Although it could be nice if you bought my speakers from me. Sorry about that. I've been trying to sell my speakers to Justin for like a year.
That's not what this podcast is about, John.
So this podcast is all about me
Actually-
soliciting my lifestyle to others.
It is.
And I feel like how I listen to music is how I solicit. It's part of my lifestyle. Therefore, this is well on top to solicit to Justin my speakers.
This is the mistake we made. Is that this topic is so broad. You could just make it an advertising space for your used gear.
Inevitably, it'll be a space to advertise, a place for me to sell my old stereo gear, and solicit Mountain Dew conspiracy theories.
Yeah, exactly. What
Yes.
else is a podcast for? Truly.
Right, and I think that's what Justin's his book in several years will be about is how Hollywood solicited us the Mountain Dew conspiracy theories inevitably, and how they force that into our bodies
Okay.
through.
The way you say that with a straight face, it gets me.
Your deadpan comedy is unhinged in the best possible way. It's great.
There are a few people that can read me, and I tend to marry them. So, so please, if you believe it, and you don't believe it. That's actually probably for the best, unless you want to marry me. I also just, I'm sorry. I told my, I actually had that, we had a conversation about I told my nephew about the Mountain Dew conspiracy theories, and he was intrigued and did a whole deep dive and was
Oh my god.
really enjoyed it. As
Pawning this slime to other people? Oh my god, dude.
I feel like we're on the verge of greatness as a country once we understand the Mountain Dew conspiracy theory
Oh, true.
and it's exposed.
We just export new Mountain Dew flavors to other countries.
We really
that we're in
should,
competition with.
I mean, yeah, we love sugar. We love conspiracy theories. Mountain Dew gives us both in the same bottle. So why not unite over it?
Feed the body and mind.
Feed the body and mind. That's a new slogan, Mountain Dew. I mean, right now, you guys get on here. We can work out some advertising things with the low fee of $50,000 of advertising funds per episode. We mention you in. We'll be happy to have you guys on unlimitedly in the future. Justin, this is a lot of fun. I hope you had fun with this, man.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me. Thanks for letting me go on, and it's really cool to talk about this stuff. So thank you again.
Oh yeah, no, we're interested. You're a good guest. I gotta say, I will say this about you, man. You came ready with some answers, and you were like, we felt like we had some curveballs here for you, but like you were like, nope, I got the answer. You were a very straight shooter on this. I was impressed.
You threw some back too. I'm still stumped.
Yeah, you threw some back. That. Yeah. Bill's mad about that, man.
Yeah, I'm fucking mad, dude. I'm kidding.
Oh, shit. Well, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, folks. Well, we're going to cut out with more in the middle. Thank you again to our Justin, or to our guest, Justin.
No, this is our Justin.
This is our Justin. Yes, this. Then we can make the joke. This Justin.
Oh my god!
All right.
Justin,
with Justin Gautreau, and then the like here. Justin, tell the people what your current book you have out is called, what the upcoming books, or where they can find you, what you're working on, and we'll leave people with that.
Sure. Yeah. So the book that's currently out is called The Last Word, the Hollywood novel in the studio system, published in 2021-ish. You can find me at Justin, Gautro, on Instagram, Justin Gautreau, all one word. And this next book the title is still being worked on, but the subtitle is something to do with the biography of W.R. Burnett, and that'll probably be out in about 5 years. So I would love to come back on in 5 years. Yeah.
We'll go throw him some support.
We'll have you. Yeah, no. When it comes out, we'll be sure to have you on. Should the executives of Mountain Dew allow the world to continue?
Yes.
Got it.
5 years.
Got it.
All right, guys. We'll see you guys later for More Than Metal.
Mountain Dew. Jeez. It's just the through line of this show is good names and Mountain Dew. Like.